you so much. I appreciate that. It took me like 20 minutes just to get this set up. Obviously, last night I had to go to another streaming service. All right, I had to do a lot of things to fix this. I apologize. All right, so let me kind of start all over. I apologize about that. I'm going to edit that out in the beginning. So if you want to rewatch it, you can rewatch it. All right, but you know what? Obviously, we all know the New York Mets are lost again. Another stinker. Mets losing 8-3. Jacob deGrom coming back to Citi Field. And you know what? The thing is, you want to start off the game right. Jonah Tong, come on. Start off the game right. The kid struggled early on, mightily struggled. And you know what? He didn't have control of the fastball, throwing a lot of changeups, walking guys. Then, 2 strike counts on a couple hitters, them having blue pits. And, the Rangers did a very good job. They did a very good job striking early. But, can I blame a rookie pitcher on his third start for having a stinker? Can I? Is it fair? And this is what we've been saying in the last couple weeks. Besides Nolan McClain, who is there mentally, he's there physically, he's got the talent, he's got the stuff. This kid deserves to be here, probably deserved to be here months and months ago, right? But a guy like Jonah Tong, who's 22 years old, who's got 2 starts in AAA, you got to grab him out of AAA and force him to pitch in a pennant race, and him having a stinker, I mean, you got to expect it. He needs more fine-tuning. You could see mentally on the mound, the kid was flustered. He was flustered facing Jacob deGrom in the other dugout. You're on a 6-game losing streak. Again, I can't fault the kid. He needs more work. He needs more seasoning. The location wasn't there. If you're not locating, it's gonna be a very, very bad situation. He had a chance to get out of it with 2 outs, got the 2 outs. And, again, the Rangers did a good job when Jonah Tong threw a ball down the middle of the plate. They put a good piece, good battled, and, they had a couple, 2 or 3 big hits. And, that was all she wrote. The Mets really had to respond. The Mets had an opportunity to respond. You start the game off 6-0 against Jacob deGrom. You're in the hole. You're in the hole big time. The Mets put a couple runs up on the board. After that, the Mets gave up. But even before we started scoring, honestly, how we were all feeling. The Mets literally had 30 consecutive hitters in a row make it out. 30 consecutive hitters. I mean, that's more than 27. That's more than a perfect game. I mean, this offense has literally gone to sleep. The players, in my opinion, have quit long ago. Carlos Mendoza has no control of the clubhouse. No control. And again, we were talking, everybody, great comments on the videos. Has this team, how rotten is this team? Is it rotten to the core? Do we need to get rid of guys like Nimmo? Do we need to get rid of not signing an Alonso, McNeil's, Lindor? He's got a big long-term contract. But is it just Nolan McClain and Juan Soto? Are we keeping them and everybody else on the table? How rotten is it? Is it just some of the new players we brought in? Is it leadership? Right now, there is a stench. There is a stench in that clubhouse. There is a huge problem. Maybe after the season, we're going to get more details about what happened. But, facts are facts, right? And I said one of the biggest mistakes was after the trade deadline, you have Steve Cohen coming out when the Mets were playing bad, when the Mets were not inspired after making those trades, after getting Ryan Helsley, after getting a couple good relievers at the time, obviously not panning out so well, but the team continued to trend downward after Mets management. And it turns out, David Stearns made some pretty ugly, bad, historically bad trades. But you know what? At the time, we didn't know it was that bad. We still thought Ryan Helsley could be a nice 8th-inning guy. We still thought, hey, Gregory Soto, he's a nice lefty. All right, whatever. So the Mets continue to go downhill, and you have Steve Cohen coming out, giving a vote of confidence to the whole team. After that, the Mets continued to play poorly. Everybody's job was safe. Carlos Mendoza, all right, Steve Cohen's, has your support. He's supporting David Stearns. Okay, now you fast forward to August 26th, and David Stearns was asked, hey, the team's doing horrible. Or is Carlos Mendoza going to come back for 2026? And David Stearns on August 26th on the John Heyman podcast said that we're bringing Carlos Mendoza back. He's done a good job. He's going to be back here for the 2026 season. What the hell is that about? This is going to go down as historically one of the worst Mets seasons of all time in terms of collapses. And you have the general manager / president guaranteeing the manager his job in the midst of one of the worst slumps I've seen in a long time. I mean, that is nuts logic. I mean, that is how the Mets brass is operating. They're not operating under logic. And you know what? The team sees, okay, Carlos Mendoza, he's going to be here. And the team just obviously has quit a long time ago. And, you know, Stearns really, the way, you know, you kind of give a guy that runway and there's no pressure of him getting fired. There's nothing to light a fire under the players. The players are already getting way overpaid. And, you know, this is what really happens. You got a team that has given up. You have a team that just goes out there playing out the string, and it's looking ugly. At Citi Field, the fans are trying their best. They're trying to cheer. They're trying to get these guys going, but it's just far too late, in my opinion. Everybody feels like they're playing out the string, and you know, this is, in my opinion, is only going to get uglier and uglier and uglier. And you know, it's just so sad. It's just really sad because you know, I know we all love this team. Most of us love this team. Most of us are Mets fans in here. Richard, I see you. Will, I see you. Danny, I see you. It's just very, very upsetting. Very upsetting at all. Daniel, I see you. Again, I'm sorry about the volume. You know, I apologize about that. But you know, again, it's got to be some major changes on the horizon for the New York Mets. This David Stearns, do I expect him to go after this season? No, I don't. But this is just, again, I think it's going to go down as the worst season ever. I mean, I'm just looking. Our record since June 13th is 31-48. 31-48. You know, this was supposed to be our final homestand. We started off 8-3 dud versus the Rangers. And, you know, there's a lot of concern. And, you know, you see the players right now, I mean, kind of doing uncharacteristic things. You got McNeil getting himself ejected. You know, apparently he said, you know, one of the words you're not supposed to say, said it to the ump, got himself ejected. You know, and again, the frustration has to be felt by all the players. Brandon Nimmo said after the game, obviously, we're very concerned. And the Mets are 76-72. 76-72. And it's just so hard to fathom because I remember when the Mets got the 21 games over 500. And I'm like, wow, we're set to have a 102-win season. And we are building on our, you know, over 500 lead, you know, maybe get to 30 games, 40 games. And, you know, was supposed to be a magical year. You know, we were heading on to July. We're heading on to July. I know the end of June was a little rough, but, you know, I would say things got really bad in the beginning of August, right after the trade deadline passed and players knew they were safe. You know, I feel like the play just got so ugly defensively. That's when, you know, Lindor, his back got a little hot, but that's when he started making errors on the field. You know, Carlos Mendoza, he was asked about the situation. Obviously, he's asked every single game. And he said, how are the players feeling? It was asked, how are the players feeling? And he goes, they're frustrated. Obviously, I'm not going to lie. You know, but I'm going to keep saying it. We got to get out of it. So those are Carlos Mendoza's words. And again, he's saying the same thing over and over. His look, Carlos Mendoza's look in the press conference is of a man who has no answers. I mean, he looks like he's sad. He's obviously not happy. But again, you're looking for a leader in that post-game press conference. You are looking for someone who's going to pull these guys out of this mess. And who's going to do it? Because it feels like we have no player. I mean, Francisco Lindor, and I believe, I was wrong on him. I thought he was a guy that can kind of say, hey, guys, follow me, get on my back. But Francisco Lindor hasn't been that leader that I thought he would. Vocally, I don't know what he's saying in the clubhouse. I can't pretend to know that. But his body language on the field, when he's not making plays defensively and he's not playing Gold Glove Award winning defense the last 2 months, he's not doing that. But he's also fraternizing and joking around with all the opponents. And I've said that over and over and over. I don't understand how that's benefiting the New York Mets at all. When you need to put your game face on and you need to focus on everything you need to do is win. All we need to do is start winning a game, and you see everybody wants to talk to the opponent. I mean, every single time a player gets down to second base, you see Francisco Lindor go over to the opposing player at second base, say some type of comment, and start laughing. I don't get it. I don't get it. Are we in it to win it, or are we just in it to, it's a job? And that's what it seems like right now. You got a bunch of players on the team who don't give a damn about winning, getting to the playoffs, who don't give a damn about making it to the World Series. Now, there are some guys who are just struggling. Like a guy like Pete Alonso, he's a free agent after this year. So I'm pretty sure the more successful the team is, the more successful he is, it would be good for everybody in his situation. But other guys who have, long-term contracts or who have just, whatever, they just don't care. It's just not good. And, people comment like, hey, you got the high-paid players like Soto, Lindor. And, again, I think these guys haven't been held accountable when they're supposed to be, and that really trickles down. If you see guys who make a mistake, Lindor getting picked off, Nimmo making errors, Mullins hitting $150. I mean, there is just up and down the lineup, no accountability. And Mendoza, again, he's been nicey nice with all of the players, and, that's not going to work, and it hasn't been working. And Steve Cohen, a guy who's invested $350 million, a guy who literally is losing $200 million. Literally, that guy is losing so much damn money. You got to just imagine that heads have to roll. You can't just keep doing the same thing over. A guy like Steve Cohen could reason, all right, I lost a lot of money this year, but the team continues to get better. We continue to build on 2024. All right, that's great. But we have regressed in such an embarrassing way since 2024. So what's going to happen next year? Is the plan going to be to, keep doubling down? Keep losing money and hope for the best. I have a lot of fears that I just don't want to say right now because I don't want to keep throwing negativity out there. But obviously, if you're a business person, this is not going to be viable. And, Steve Cohen said early on that he likes Mendoza, but he also said that he's going to hold Mendoza accountable for performance. He's going to hold him accountable for performance. Now, the performance is not there. And I know there's a very strong contingent of people who believe you have to blame the players. But I'm telling you, the talent that the Mets have is still superior to the talent that the teams have behind the Mets. And I'm talking about the Giants. I'm talking about the D-backs. I'm talking about the Cardinals. I'm talking about the Reds. You can't tell me that they have a whole lot more talent than the Mets, but they are playing more inspired baseball. They are fighting to make the playoffs. And again, are they motivated more because a team like the Mets is faltering and they are creating opportunities to get in that third wild card spot? Probably. But you know what? They're motivated. They're inspired. The New York Mets are not motivated. They are not inspired. And you know what? Things have to change. And I anticipate things will change. What's up, Danny? So, Danny, you're right. And 100% true. Fans are paying a lot of money, too bad, for showing. And, you know, I felt so bad when they panned the camera around. It was the bottom of the ninth inning. The Mets were down 8-3. And most Mets fans that they had on camera were putting their heads in their hands, except for one guy had his shoe in his hand. I don't know what the hell he was doing, but whatever. If the rally cap wasn't working for that guy and the rally cap apparently hasn't been working, all right, go for the shoe. All right, but regardless of that, regardless of the shoe guy, you see the camera going around all the Citi Field, and every single Mets fan had a similar look. First of all, this is the same old script. Everybody's got their head in their hands. And, you know, it's just such a sad thing that, you know, the Mets, who were supposed to be a World Series contender, it just looks like we're getting into a car accident in slow motion, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. You're going to lose. Ninth inning, 1-2-3. We didn't put up a fight. We didn't put up a fight yesterday. We haven't put up a fight all week. We lost the Red series that we should have won. We lost the Phillies series. We got swept. And you know what? Every time there's a chance we get a gut shot, we get punched in the face, let's see if this team responds. This team lays over and dies. So, you know, I don't like that. You know, I said I found that, or we always spoke about how the Mets didn't have a killer instinct. Well, right now, the Mets right now are just rolling over and dying. And I see people in the chat talking about Pete Alonso right now in terms of possibly re-signing him. Other people are saying, let him go. Will, I see you. You know, Pete is done. Here's the fact of the matter is right now, you know, Mets are not in any position to give a 31-year-old who's been part of multiple collapses any contract like that he desired. I know he was looking for over $100 million. You know, I know a lot of people love Pete, and I wanted Pete like a couple months ago. I'm like, we got to sign Pete. We got to sign Pete. But at this point right now, you can't keep throwing money after bad. You can't. Manaea, everybody wanted him last year. You give the guy $75 million, and he's one of the worst pitchers on your team, probably one of the worst pitchers in MLB right now. And, you know, now he's smiling in the dugout every single time the camera's on him. I can't even look when the camera is on Sean Manaea. The guy is smiling like he just won the World Series. And this is, you know, when the camera's on him is usually after he's had a horrible performance. And also, too, when you ask Sean Manaea, like, what do you do to get better? What do you do? You know, what's going on right now? Never has an answer. Never has an answer. In fact, the thing I haven't heard from Carlos Mendoza, and I haven't really heard this, maybe I missed this from the media, but I would like to know, Carlos Mendoza, you are losing a ridiculous amount of games. You're on another 7-game losing streak. You're 17 games under 500 since mid-June. What are you doing different? What are you doing different? Are the players preparing different? If everybody's failing, doing the same things, how are we continuing to exist? What are we doing different? And I don't want to know one thing. I want to know a whole slew of things because, again, doing the same thing is not working. It's not working. So, you know, I remember a couple of weeks ago, the Mets had an offensive explosion, and it was said that every single Mets player was out there 3 hours before the game, and every single hitter took batting practice. Now, you know, I haven't watched batting practice in a while, but apparently, usually only 4 or 5 hitters take batting practice, not the whole team. On that particular day, the whole team took batting practice, and the team had a great game. I think they scored 13 runs that day. So then in my mind, and I'm pretty sure it shouldn't register with Carlos Mendoza, Okay, the bats need to take batting practice right before the game. Every game, everybody's got to take batting practice. That's just one example. But again, what are we doing different preparation wise to increase our performances? And I know a lot of the problem right now is mental. And I always say this. I talk about this a lot. Guys like Greg Maddux says 60% of the game was mental. Yogi Berra, even more. He says 90% of the game is mental. And right now, we are being beat physically. We are being beat mentally. So, even on that aspect, what are we doing to make our team mentally stronger? I've always felt that the New York Mets felt that they had, and this is what Carlos Mendoza says, he says that we have the experience. Based upon that, I felt that he was of the belief that once the playoffs neared, that the New York Mets would hit a switch. It's 14 games left, and the New York Mets still have not hit that switch. So, again, we're getting to a point where it's kind of laughable. And again, it's inevitable. And I feel bad for Mets fans. I feel bad for Mets fans because, again, we were duped. We were duped in 2023. We were duped in 2025. And this was actually a lot worse because we invested more money, more time, more resources. And in fact, when we gave up on 2023, 2025 was the year that we were that was the targeted year where we would go pedal to the metal and go all in. And this is what we have to show for it. So not good. Will, I told you it was all fool's gold. I got to say, you were one of the very few Mets fans that even when the Mets went on their second losing streak, you were saying this team is not good enough. So, Will, I give you credit for that. You were one of the first people, and you remain consistent throughout, even when the Mets would win against Detroit, even when they won that sweep against Philly, even when they looked better against Atlanta. You said it's not good enough. It's fool's gold. We got 14 games left. And right now the New York Mets don't control their own destiny, and that is their own fault. What's up, Crispy? And you're right. Don't worry, guys. Mendy says we need to be better. And Stearns will come out tomorrow and claim we're still right there in the middle of the pennant race. Nothing to worry about all. I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. Obviously, I know you're being facetious, but Mets fans aren't stupid. Mets fans aren't dumb. This is not a slump. This is not a small stretch. This is a majority of the season that we've played underperforming, bad fundamental baseball. I mean, that's the thing. If I see my team going out there fighting from the first to the ninth inning, playing solid, good fundamental defense, and fighting for their lives, that's one thing. But this New York Mets team has made silly mistake after silly mistake. Even in the first inning, and thank God Brandon Nimmo caught that ball. I'm like, it's just such a good personification of this game that the third out when Braziban came in for Jonah Tong, you have Brandon Nimmo going back on the ball, literally falls down, catches the ball, but falls down. And I've been saying for weeks and weeks now that Brandon Nimmo's defense has deteriorated to such a bad level, right? So when you look at our long-term future, defense is got to be a huge key. Defense has got to be a huge key. So you're going to have a problem. I mean, Brandon Nimmo, you got a problem. Right field, Juan Soto, I mean, you're going to have to live with him. So you're going to have a very strong center fielder. I know we got a top prospect, Carson Benj. He's a guy that, he could be a future solution. But the New York Mets have to start being a lot more prudent on defense. All right. Russ, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. And the pitching rotation right now, we just need so much help. I mean, it's a failed experiment this year. And I don't want to say it's a failed experiment, but you had David Stearns, who again, the guru of pitching, and this was one of the worst rotations of 2025. I mean, like, we're in the bottom categories of many pitching statistics. So David Stearns didn't just do a bad job. He has done one of the worst jobs in all of MLB in terms of assembling a starting rotation. In fact, I mean, I saw this chatter. I saw this chatter right now that things are getting so bad and Mendy has no pitching options. And, you're not going to win without starting pitchers. You're not going to win if you continue to put pressure on the bullpen. These are things we've been saying all year. But right now, obviously, you got guys injured. You got Francisco Alvarez. He's injured. You got to force him to play. Luis Torrens, he's injured. One of your best defensive guys. Tyrone Taylor, he's injured. One of your best defensive guys. So we have a lot of defensive talent right now on the sideline. So, Mendy right now, again, Mullins, you got to play. That's a product of Stearns. Hey, the three rookies. The only reason why you guys are in the lineup right now is a product of David Stearns. Francisco Alvarez, we got to force you to play with a torn ligament in your hand because we don't have a viable backup. That's a product of David Stearns. Hey, Ryan Helsley, I got to go to you because I have nobody else. That's a product of David Stearns. So a lot of times I feel like, Mendoza puts himself in these situations or goes to certain guys and says, hey, this is what David Stearns gave me. And if I fail, hey, this is what David Stearns gave me. I think that's the only thing that could potentially save a guy like Mendoza. Although my thing is, I would have fired him in August. But David Stearns continues to say he's my guy. He's my guy. And the latest time he said was on August 26th on the John Heyman podcast. And he said, he's my guy. He's going to be back here for the 2026 season. So behind closed doors, I don't know what the hell's going on, but Steve Cohen cannot be happy. I did not speak for 45 minutes. I spoke for 14 minutes. And today I spoke for 6 minutes. And this is why I'm not doing these live streams anymore, because I keep getting blocked with the sound. So I apologize about that. Richard, I didn't even see what you did. You kicked somebody out. All right. So the rest of the schedule, we have obviously 2 games left with the Rangers. We got 3 with the Padres. We got 3 with the Nationals. We have 3 with the Cubs and 3 with the Marlins. So, with a team that appears to be mentally defeated, let's see how many wins we can get out of this. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games left. And then you have the Cincinnati Reds right on our tail, 74 and 72. You got the San Fran Giants, 74 and 72. Same amount of losses as we do. And then you have the D-backs, they're a little further back. So, I mean, right now we're just, we have the same record essentially with 2 teams. They got to get 2 more wins in the wild card. Technically, they're 1 game back, but right now we're fighting this to hold off the Reds, fighting to hold off the Giants. Let me see who the Reds have. $15. All right. I mean, at least the Reds lost tonight. All right. And the Reds have 15 games left. And the Reds, they're playing 2 more games with the A's. I mean, they're not a great team. The Cardinals are playing the Cardinals were playing the Reds pretty good. So, I mean that's a series I could see the Cardinals taking 2 out of 3, on a good day. The Cubs, they're playing 3 games. I'm sorry, 4 games against the Cubs. And the Reds are playing 3 against the Pirates, and then they end the season 3 against the Brewers. So you got 7 games left against playoff teams, 4 against the Cubs, 3 against the Brewers. Those games are going to be tough for the Reds, but then they got 3 against the Pirates, 3 against the Cardinals. But those teams are feisty. Those teams are feisty. So 15 games. I'm thinking we got to win like 8 or 9 games. 9 games to be safe. 9 games to be safe. Can we go 9-5 down the stretch? 9-5. I mean, that really kind of seems like we're asking a lot from a team that just lost 7 in a row. But you know what? I mean, if a miracle's gonna happen, now would be the perfect time. Wow, I'm looking at Mullins. Mullins has been a complete disaster. I mean, with the New York Mets, almost 100 at bats, 1 home run, 8 RBIs. The guy's batting 190. 190. Will, you're right. Soto was never my worry. My worries were the players that have been here, and look what's happened. Soto is tuning it up, and the players who have been here are fading like they always do. I mean, really, like, who's really blaming Soto? I know the in the last couple of days, Soto's been selfish, but Soto's one of the only guys here producing. I mean, there's like probably 10, 15 things you could blame before Juan Soto. The Yankees win the World Series, prepare for the Soto jokes. I mean, it's always been like that with the Mets, Yankee. I mean, Yankees too. Yankees, they got the 27, 28 World Series. So, but then again, they haven't won since 2009. I really would really doubt the Yankees are going to win, but we'll see. We'll see. They got to the World Series last year. They didn't win last year. I doubt they're going to win this year. And I mean, if you're Juan Soto right now and you're getting on base still at a ridiculous clip. You're leading the league in walks. You're leading the league almost every single year in OBP. In terms of him being a selfish player, again, I'm going to say this: guys who kind of go for walks and pass the baton along, I mean, traditionally aren't viewed as selfish players. I'm going to continue to say, I wish throughout the season Juan Soto was more selfish and Juan Soto swung the bat more, because in terms of bat talent, this guy literally, he's got the most talent on the team in terms of swinging the bat. So, the guy right now is at the end of the year. Are you going to continue to pass the baton to the guys behind you who have no offensive production? I mean, Pete's gone into a slump. Nimmo's gone into a slump. Like, what's the benefit to continue to pass the baton to guys who are going to continue to fail over and over and over? And then when Soto's at the plate in the last week, you see guys like Brett Beatty getting picked off. Francisco Lindor getting picked off multiple times, one stealing, one on a throw. So, I mean, if you're Juan Soto, you got to be a bit frustrated right now. So the guy's stealing a couple bases. Well, you're doing it when he's batting. All right, he's going to try to get a couple extra steals. He's going for something magical. 40-40 was something that one of the coaches said, yeah, it's something that he can do, but it's going to be tough with 14 games left. I think 35, 40 home runs, 35 stolen bases. That is still heavily on the table. And that's magical. And if he somehow in his career this year, if it's a miracle and he got to 40-40, he'd be the 7th man in MLB history to get to 40-40. Plus, he's got the other ridiculous stats like high OBP, high walking, the most walks in MLB. 110 plus runs scored, 100 RBIs. So, Juan Soto could do something that is historic. And if he's got that opportunity in front of him and he cares about his performance, go for it. I don't see why not. Zig, you're out. During his New York Mets introductory press conference on December 12th, 2024, after signing a record-breaking contract, Juan Soto declared New York has been a Mets town for a long time. I mean, that probably was to hype up the Mets fans and to irk the Yankees fan, because obviously, as a Mets fan, we all know it hasn't been a Mets town for a long time, probably since the 80s. So I mean, I don't care. I mean, I'm a Mets fan. I don't care if he irks the Yankee fans, but that's probably what it was more about. Who knows? He might have said that because he has some type of, it was a personal thing between him and other people. That just didn't make any sense historically. So I'm just looking at the Giants score. All right, so you got the bottom of the 10th inning. You know, at the end of the day, right now, would anybody be surprised if Steve Cohen fired David Stearns? Because if you really think about it right now, David Stearns has really lost a lot of luster. I mean, especially from last year. I know the guy's got some, he's developing the farm system. It's always about the long-term picture, but there's some things, this is historically bad. I mean, historically bad. We are losing hundreds of millions of dollars. I think last year we lost close to $150 million. This year, gonna lose money as well with the payroll being where it is. The Mets revenue, didn't start off good in the beginning of the year. The Mets did pick up attendance towards the middle part of the season. But again, Steve Cohen's going to lose money. He's going to lose money. And again, this was supposed to be the targeted year where you spent $800 million on Soto. You spent $75 million on Sean Manaea. That was a fail. Montage, you gave him $34 million. That was a fail. All the acquisitions at the trade deadline, that seemed like that was a fail. And, let's not lose fact. Maybe that we didn't give up any top echelon prospects, any top blue chip guys, but we did give up prospect capital nonetheless. I mean, a guy like Drew Gilbert, a guy who's helping our rival, the San Francisco Giants, win games, and he's playing center field. He's motivating that team. That's a prospect that 6 years of Drew Gilbert, we lost, right? Whether he's a fourth outfielder, fifth outfielder, that's what, David Stearns was thinking along those lines. All right, that's his ceiling, fourth outfielder. All right, we can afford to give him up for 2 months of Tyler Rogers, plus giving up guys like Blade Tidwell, plus other prospects. David Stearns has a lot of egg on his face, no doubt about it. And throughout several points in the year, he continues to say a guy like Carlos Mendoza is doing a good job. Now, by him hitching everything to Carlos Mendoza, is that him saying, all right, you know what? My credibility, my job is attached to this guy right now, because instead of firing him, and I wanted to fire him in August, and that I felt you had to fire him because you've invested so much money in this season that was the way to go. There was too much. You had to change that clubhouse dynamic. You had to. Nobody was being held accountable. It was asked in the beginning of August, why do we continue to play Lindor? And I know he eventually got hot, but at that time he was batting 170 over his last 30 games. And why do you continue to play the guy? Well, Carlos Mendoza answers. He comes to the game early. He's battling, he's doing the best job. But, again, when you don't hold the top guys accountable, how are you going to have everybody give their best effort? How? I mean, it just seems like, again, no accountability, no production, no results, and you're going to see a team play 17 games under 500 since the middle of June, like we've seen. And when when it gets hot, and right now you got 14 games left, how are you ever going to turn it on? This team doesn't really. It feels like we've been really dying since June, and again, it's very frustrating. All right, so I'm gonna answer these questions. So I came up with a list of questions right now. Number one, have the Mets players quit on the season? And the whole video, I'm trying to say, the whole live stream, that's the case. The Mets have quit on this season. Number two, should Carlos Mendoza be fired? Not for any recent play, but at the long term of 2025 for this season, should he be fired? My answer, again, I'm going to go with yes, he should be fired. Now, David Stearns, should he be fired? Well, I think this counts as a huge strike against David Stearns. Guy should have one opportunity to hire another manager. See how that works out. But also, David Stearns, in my opinion, he can't do two jobs. He can't be a GM and he can't be a president. I would keep him as president of baseball operations because of the long-term vision, and I'm all for the long-term plan. But also, I would hire a general manager to take something off the plate of David Stearns. And hopefully that will improve baseball operations in terms of making better trades, evaluating players. We're doing a bad job at evaluating players. What's going on with the pitching lab? We have to look into that as well. So that's that. So not firing David Stearns right now, but definitely keeping him on a short leash. And again, I'm saying not firing him now because, again, I always think the general manager / president is a longer term job, but I do heap a lot of the blame on David Stearns. And then one of the other questions I did have, should Steve Cohen step in and clean house? Well, the thing is, that's just dependent on what your answer would be with David Stearns. If you decide to keep David Stearns, obviously he's going to clean house, so he's going to make those wholesale changes. And again, how much confidence do we have in David Stearns? I mean, again, the deadline trades in the last 2 years really haven't impressed me. Really haven't impressed at all. I mean, last year we got Paul Blackburn. That was our big starter. We needed an extra starter. Literally days before the trade deadline, you have the luxury of knowing Kodai Senga got hurt in that series against the Braves. And again, you needed a starter. You needed an additional starter down the stretch. So much so that we tried to pitch Kodai Senga at the end of the year when he was clearly not ready to come back. So again, you have 2 years in a row where it comes to September and we're in a desperate situation when it comes to our starting pitching staff. So that's 2 years in a row you have Stearns with that particular same blunder. I mean, you can't continue to make the same mistake over and over. And, then who's your biggest player disappointment? I mean, if you look at the core four in the last couple of weeks, Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo, Juan Soto, that's your core four. Those are the guys who carry you when the rest of the team is not doing well. I mean, who's the biggest disappointment? And my answer, I'm going to say Lindor. I know he just recently started to not hit well, but again, defensively he's not playing great defensively. He's not playing great defensively, but also the thing with him is he's a guy who has a long-term contract. I know Nimmo does as well. I know Soto does as well, but Soto obviously is not the worst guy. But Lindor is supposed to be that leader on and off the field, and I just don't think his number one focus is to win. It's not winning. It's not winning. You see Bryce Harper the other day. He's got a stone face. All he cares about is beating the crap out of the Mets. And, you got Pete Alonso, you got Lindor, and again, they're trying to be friends with the other team. Danny, you're right. Budo's doing well for the Giants. Gilbert is sparking them with his madness. I mean, we literally got nothing back. We got nothing back. We got a guy who throws underhand and who's going to be a free agent, a 34-year-old guy. And the bullpen is just really not in a great situation where his addition ended up impacting us at all in a positive way. There you go, Ray. There you go. And I'm just looking at some more stats here. I think I remember there was a time when the Mets were 21 games over 500. I think our plus minus differential, and I might have got this number wrong. We were like 90 runs. I think it was like 90 runs more offensive production than defensive production. But right now we have a negative run differential of minus 24 over the last 87 games. So we're minus 24 over the last 87 games. So we're not even at even. This is not good, not good. If you don't score as many runs as you give up, you're going to lose a lot of games. You're going to lose a lot of games. And it really feels like the last couple of weeks, a lot of things we were counting on, like Luis Torrens playing most of the time for Francisco Alvarez. Luis Torrens, that injury was huge. That was a huge injury. I really think it took a lot of the life out of the Mets, that were fighting. Obviously, Torrens is a guy who can hold runners, from stealing. And his bat, nice line drive swing. I always liked the way he went oppo, right center field. Didn't try to do too much. Just tried to move the line along. Luis Torrens is one of the few bright spots. Tyler McGill, the fact that he never, ever was able to make it back, that was another knock towards the Mets in a negative direction. So you got Tyler McGill not making it back, Luis Torrens, and then Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor is obviously a monumental upgrade over Mullins, over McNeil, and we've seen the disaster when you have guys who aren't that top echelon center fielder, and then you couple that with Brandon Nimmo in left field, who's not a top left fielder. In fact, his performance in left field is becoming atrocious. And in right field, you have Juan Soto, who was never regarded as a great defender. And then obviously you have the bats. You have the bats just go to sleep. It's just really like, everybody was asking, what's the one reason? There's just not one reason. There's just so many reasons for us playing this bad. Yeah, the Griffin Canning injury, I mean, that turned out to be a big loss. I mean, Griffin Canning was very serviceable the first couple months. And I remember when we got Griffin Canning, gave him that $4 million deal. Everybody was all up in arms, like, that's the guy we're going to go after. But turned out to be, one of the stabilizing factors in the first couple months. I mean, Griffin Canning is going to go down as one of our best starting pitchers for 2025. So, I mean, that was actually one of the few good moves that David Stearns actually made. Jose Siri, another supposed value move. Unfortunately, the guy got hurt, so you couldn't fairly evaluate him. But it's really hard to find any good moves that Stearns made this year. From the free agent signings to the trade deadline moves to the decisions whether to whether to fire Carlos Mendoza or to give him support. Every single decision has been horrible. Then when you couple that with the fact that, hey, when was the right time to bring up Nolan McLean? And then we wait to literally late August when, yes, did he help out? Did he help us out? I mean, tremendously, because without Nolan McLean starts, we would be 2 or 3 games behind in the wild card race at this time, if not more. So Nolan McLean literally held us in that. But the fact of the matter is, I would have liked to see him well before that. I would have liked to see Drew Gilbert a little before you give up on him, especially when you need that defensive guy in center field. You need a spark plug. You need a guy with that type of energy. And that was one of the things that I love the most about Drew Gilbert. Always a guy, not the most talented guy, but he was a guy that would run through a wall for you, through a wall for the team. And, you package him off along with a couple other players, again, for Tyler Rogers. So, again, up and down, David Stearns, so far, he's going to get a very low grade for this 2025 season. And, people doubted him before this year and said, hey, he's a small market GM, this and that. So, I mean, he hasn't really earned any credibility. All the criticism he had before this year, he deserves, and he deserves much more because he had a whole abundance of resources and he mismanaged them. So again, very bad performance by David Stearns. Only thing he has to put his hat on, and it's still a very big thing, is the development of a lot of the prospects. One could say is, all right, maybe. Well, I mean, you can't really say that the Mets would have drafted the same exact guys that they drafted, but they also developed some of their existing prospects. But, that's the only thing you can kind of say, hey, you know what? That's looking positive. We got a bunch of slew of pitching prospects. I think like 15 out of our top 30 prospects are pitching prospects. So, that's looking more in a positive direction. In the past, we've had no pitching prospects to go to, like Jose Budo. That was like one of our top prospects. Traded him away. Pitching guys, we traded him away. Blade Tidwell, that was one of our top pitching prospects in the last couple of years. Traded him away in the same package, and then you traded Drew Gilbert away. Funny thing is, last year, all those guys were on most lists ranked in the top 10 of Mets prospects. So it does got kind of go to show you where the Mets system has gotten much better, that you can afford to give up 3 of your past top 10 prospects and still your system is not really negatively affected that much. Richie, I see you guys talking about the Bronx. Yeah, my twin brother lives in the Bronx. I don't know how most of the areas it is, but I know his car literally got broken into twice in the last month. So his block is not the best. Yep. I got a twin brother. Kind of looks similar. He's a Yankee fan though. He's a Yankee fan, so big Yankee fan. All right, so let's do one thing now. Well, Ray, actually, me and my brother, we did fight a lot. We did fight a lot. I mean, he was a little bigger than me, but we did fight a lot. I got stitches here on my eye. He threw me into the wall. I threw him into the counter. He's got stitches over here. We got a lot of injuries, and we played sports, so like, I had a lot of injuries from sports. Um, Tore my ACL, tore my rotator cuff, tore my hamstring, broke a bone on my back, broke 7 fingers. So when I played, I used to play hard. Probably not the smartest thing. That's why when I see the New York Mets play, it's not really like my mentality. But these players these days kind of like to. I mean, it's good to take care of your body. I mean, I still think Francisco Alvarez shouldn't be out there. He hit a home run today, but if you notice, the home run that he hit today was out over the plate. That's like one of the only pitches I think he can handle. But that was a mistake. Yeah, Ray, I kind of suck. I would definitely not help out the Mets. All right, so right now, this is what I want to do. In fact, let me see. I want to go through the team. I want to go through the team right now, and I want to go through would we bring these players back next year. Okay, so I'm going to go through the team right now. I'm going to start with the outfielders. But before I do that, for anyone who wasn't in here, Carlos Mendoza, manager, I would not bring back. I would not bring back in terms of energizing this team, motivating this team, having answers, making changes. I would just go in another direction. So manager would not bring back. David Stearns is a guy that, again, in my opinion, lost a lot of credibility this year, a whole lot of credibility. But again, for the long-term vision, I would give him another year. I would give him an opportunity to clean house and hire another manager. But, if I'm Steve Cohen, what I want is David Stearns to hire a general manager. I don't like that he is the general manager and the president of baseball operations. So I would keep him on that conditional basis. Now let's go through the outfield. Let's start with the outfield. And again, I'm not looking at the fact that, if they have a contract with us, that's fine. We're just going to do the hypothetical situation of, do you want him on the team for next year or not? So Starling Marte, would you want Starling Marte on the team next year or not? He is 30. He's got 37 years old. 37 years old for next year. So this is the last year of his contract. This year, having a very good year. Very good year for a guy who is 36 years old. I think he's been, we've asked him to do a lot more than probably I would have expected. He's batted .273 on the year, 8 home runs, 32 RBIs. Apologize if you can't see the stats. But in terms of production, Starling Marte hasn't been a hindrance. He's actually been a bright spot in certain areas. But in terms of this team's growth, in terms of going in a certain direction, a guy like Starling Marte at age 37 is not is not something I want to build around. Not build around, but I don't think that he should be a part of 2026 at age 37. At age 37. So for me, no, not on Starling Marte. And, also, too, the guy's been very injury prone in the past. This year, he's been a little better with the injuries. But overall, Starling Marte going forward, trying to make my team younger, more dynamic. I wouldn't go in that Starling Marte direction. All right, so the second guy on the list, we have Jose Siri. We gave him $2 million for this year. And Jose Siri, it's really hard to judge him. He's been injured the entire year. So, he's a guy it's really hard to evaluate. If you can get him for a very low price of $2 million because of his potential glove, I consider signing him for a fourth or fifth outfield position if he's healthy, if he's 100% healthy, if I don't got to worry about his health situation. He's only had 30 plate appearances on the year. I'm sorry, not even 30. He's had 26 at bats. So we've really seen nothing of Siri. He has a .77 average, but again, there's no sample size from Siri this year. So again, if you signed him last year and you think he could be that defensive stud at $2 million, he's a guy that has potential for pop. 25 home run season in 2023, and he had 338 at bats. So he's a guy that I take him for a fifth outfield position. So I'm yes on Siri potentially. All right. So the next guy, we have Brandon Nimmo. Now, for all of you who have watched my channel for a long time, Brandon Nimmo is a guy I've always loved. I've always had him in my top 3 in terms of favorite Mets players. But here's the thing with Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is deteriorating before our eyes, unfortunately. He's going to be, I believe he's going to be 33 years old next year. We still have him for about 5 or 6 years. This year, decent year offensively, 22 home runs, 81 RBIs, 260 batting average. He's had lower body injuries. He's a guy that I think is really kind of, we've seen the peak of Brandon Nimmo. I mean, you know what? Could he be okay not playing as much in the outfield? Could he be okay, DHing? Okay. But I want to change this clubhouse. I really do. I want to change this clubhouse. And frankly, we haven't won enough for Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is part of the core 4, right? He's part of the core 4. And, I want to break things up. I want to get younger. I want to get faster. I want to get more dynamic. I want to play, kind of like the Brewers. I want to play even more like the Marlins. I want to get exciting. And Brandon Nimmo, again, he's a nice player. He used to be a high OBP guy, on base guy. Now he's a bit more power laden, but he's got holes in his swings. And he has holes in his swing, and he also is not the greatest defensively, and he's got a noodle for an arm. So he is a guy that if I had an opportunity, I wouldn't bring him back. And I know he has a contract. This is just a hypothetical thing. Would you bring him back or would you not? Brandon Nimmo is a guy that I turn the page on. I really would turn the page. I think we're at the point right now where this team needs drastic changes. Okay, now let's go to the next guy. And again, everybody, you could disagree, and that's fine. Just, write your comment, and let's see if you make a good point. Okay, so the next guy is fairly easy. This is an easy guy. Cedric Mullins. He's going to be a free agent this year. We brought him over at the deadline. He has been a horrific addition. He has literally virtually done nothing. I mean, defensively, not great. Offensively, horrific. Almost 100 ABs, 1 home run, 8 RBIs, 188 batting average, 7 stolen bases. The guy has been such a negative acquisition, really such a negative acquisition. In fact, when you played Mullins and then you went back to Tyrone Taylor, you saw the huge gap in talent. You saw the huge gap. Like Mullins, the only thing he did was make Tyrone Taylor look that much better. But again, Mullins is a huge no. All right, so right now in the outfield, the only guy I have is potentially Jose Siri, if you can get him for $2 million or less as a fifth outfielder. So I'm no on Nimmo, I'm no on Mullins, and I'm no on Marte. Now, Juan Soto obviously is signed to that mega contract. I know that people who are giving up on him, and a lot of people are saying he's selfish. Again, I want him to be more selfish, and I wish other guys on the team were as selfish as Juan Soto. I'm a no-brainer on Juan Soto. Yes, I want him on my team for next year. All right, so Luis Angel Acuna, one of our young prospects that we had. We got him in the Max Scherzer trade a couple years ago. A lot of people are saying, is he a poor man's Ronald Acuna? He's a couple inches shorter than Ronald. He's 5'8". Ronald's around 6 foot. So the power is a huge differential between the two brothers. But the thing about Acuna is he was supposed to be hailed for his speed, and he was supposed to be a good defensive guy. And then I was hoping that, all right, the hit tool, gets better over time. The hit tool will get better over time. Now, he didn't play as much as I thought he would this year. He's had 171 at-bats, literally 0 home runs. 0 home runs, so he's shown no pop. Batted .234, 286 OBP, 275 slug. So again, no power, no pop from this kid. 14 stolen bases, 28 runs scored. The thing is, he fits in the mold that I like. I like guys who are fast, guys who could play good defense. But the fact of the matter is he's got virtually no pop. And this year he didn't hit for batting average. So if I want to have an upgraded team, he's probably a guy that I would probably keep as like a 5th or a 6th infielder. And in fact, that's only because he's 23 years old. So I still want to see a bit more, but he's not going to be my starting second baseman. Not going to be my starting second baseman on a team that I want to improve in a major way. So Luis Acuna, yes, but in the right role. And also, too, I'm apt to trading him. If the right package comes along where I'm getting something of value, something that makes my team better, Luis Acuna is definitely on the block for me. And this year, I got to consider a major disappointment, especially when you compare to how we played down the stretch last year in 2024 when Lindor was injured. Acuna really stepped up in a big way. And I remember, I think, Will, yeah, I was big on Acuna, and I think you were saying trade him back then when he had, when he had all that value. But, you like your prospects, and I like my prospects too. I'd still give him a chance, but I would definitely consider trading him in the right package. All right, so next guy. Okay. And my opinion on Mr. Brett Baty, I gotta say, really evolved throughout the year. Brett Baty early on kind of struggled. He really struggled in a big way. Brett Baty played a lot at second base, third base as well. But Brett Baty, it seemed like he did something to his swing, where his swing was a bit more fluid in about mid-August. He really hit for a lot more power. And I kind of I think we all saw, what Brett Baty could be if, he became consistent. That's always been his thing. It's always been consistency. Can he put it together mentally? Every time he goes to AAA, this is a guy who mashes. But on the major league level, he tended to struggle. This year, despite that, in 360 at-bats, you have 16 home runs, 45 RBIs, 253 batting average. You project that to a 600 AB season, you're talking 25 home runs, close to 80 RBIs at 4 second baseman. That's not bad at all. That is not bad. So in terms of Brett Baty, I would definitely continue to stick with him. Second base, third base, probably more second base. I like the fact that this guy could put up close to 30 home runs as a second baseman. I mean, that's pretty nice. That is a pretty good luxury to have. So Brett Baty for me is a huge yes. And let me just stop because I think this is pretty well said. Richie, you're right. This team makes way too many excuses for itself. And, that's, I think, part of the problem. And part of the problem is no accountability. You're right. There's a ton of excuses. And that's got to change. That's got to change. But it all starts from the top. It really all starts from the top. I think, Steve Cohen has, probably put he put all the power with David Stearns, really did. Gave him the keys to the castle, $11 million a year. You make every single decision. And, David Stearns did a decent job in Milwaukee. But also, Milwaukee, in my opinion, took it to a different level when David Stearns left. Now, there's way too many excuses from David Stearns, from Carlos Mendoza. So again, that's not, your team's not going to take it to the next level if there's no accountability. All right, so let's continue. And then after this, I want to look at the schedule. I want to see how many games we could realistically win. I mean, like I said it before, we got 14 games left. And for us to securely make the playoffs, I'm thinking we have to go 9-5. 9-5 down the stretch. And that's considering the fact that we don't have the tiebreaker with the Reds. Okay, so we spoke about Acuna. We spoke about Brett Beatty. Let's go to Jeff McNeil. Let's go to the squirrel himself, Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil is 33 years old right now. He's a jack of all trades guy. You want to play him second base, center field, left field. Guy can play all over the place. Really can. Obviously, he won that batting crown a few years back. This year, nice, decent pop. For a guy like him, he had 12 home runs and 358 at bats, 51 RBIs. That projects to about 20 home runs in a 600 AB season. So that's not bad. 260 batting average. So, Jeff's been decent, but here's the thing, I would not bring him back at age 34 because that's part of my get younger, get faster, and turn the page mentality. Get younger, get faster, turn the page. Again, Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, that core we've had for so many years right now. And again, we've had two major collapses under both of them. Major collapses and other failures as well. So, 2022, in my opinion, that was a failure too. We won 101 games. We had expectations going into the playoffs, and we ended up spitting the bit against the Padres. So again, I consider that a failure. So way too many failures under this core. In fact, the only successful season where we exceeded expectations, in my opinion, was 2024. All right, so McNeil is a no-go. I would not bring McNeil back for next year. All right, so we got some options. Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos. And again, this is a hypothetical thing. It doesn't matter if they have a contract or not. All right, now let's go to Mark Vientos first. Mark Vientos, if you want to turn the page, make sure that whatever happens this year is not repeated, would you bring Mark Vientos back to your team next year? And I'm going to say yes for a couple reasons. Number one, at the trade deadline, there were I can't tell you. I probably got the most messages about this. And it was because my philosophy was I will not trade Mark Vientos for Luis Robert Jr., number one. Number two, would I trade him? Yeah, in the right package. If I'm getting value back that makes my team better. But other than that, Mark Vientos showed me how dynamic of a player he can be at DH. Also, Pete Alonso. Am I bringing him back? Is Mark Vientos a potential backup for first base / DH? I think that might be an option. But nonetheless, Mark Vientos, when he is hot, he is extremely dynamic. Despite having a very bad beginning of the season, still in less than 400 at bats, he's got 17 home runs, almost 60 RBIs, 242 batting average. Not great. 300 OBP, horrible. 436 slug, not great. 733 OPS. But the thing is, he really came on in August. And he was really kind of why we had that resurgence in August. Lindor got hot. Vientos got hot. Soto, he was Juan Soto. But, I think Mark Vientos was a huge part of it. And I think Mark Vientos has a huge future with New York. We have 4 years left of Mark Vientos. We've never had a DH that I really respected. Never had a DH I respected. So whether he plays DH or whether he plays first base and he doesn't kill you on the defensive side, but he still has that opportunity to mash offensively, I want Mark Vientos on my team for the future. All right, so now we got the two top guns, part of the core four. Core four, we got Ronnie Mauricio too. All right, Ronnie Mauricio, I'm going to just keep it short. Ronnie Mauricio is a guy who came back, I believe, from an ACL surgery. But Ronnie Mauricio has looked horrific in some ABs. Horrific. I mean, he's a guy that, I could see him if he gets the right seasoning, if, works with a trainer, works with his swing, gets confidence. The guy's got tools. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got defensive capabilities. He just needs some more seasoning mentally. He needs some more practice. He needs confidence. This kid needs confidence. He needs to be much more patient at the plate. But the fact that he has skills, tools, talent that I like, switch hitting guy, former shortstop, power, speed, he's got those tools. I would keep him. I would certainly keep him. And I can understand some people who wouldn't want to keep him because he has looked horrible in certain parts of the season, but I still think there's a lot of talent there. Would I consider trading him in the right package? Yes, he's another guy I would consider trading in the right package. Okay, and now here's the thing, and we have Pete Alonso left, and we have Francisco Lindor left for the infield. And again, it has nothing to do with their contracts. Doesn't matter. Francisco Lindor has 6 years left on his contract. Doesn't matter. Would you want to keep him on the team for next year or not? So Pete Alonso will go first. Pete Alonso is actually, you can ask yourself that question because Pete Alonso potentially is going to be a free agent. Supposedly he's going to opt out of his contract. This year, Pete Alonso started off on a house of fire. The guy had a great beginning of the year. He's also hit well with runners in scoring positions, 114 RBIs, 33 homers. So the power has kind of tailed off a bit, especially when you compare his power output to 2019 and his power output to, some of the past years. 265 batting average, much better than the last 2 years, 240 and 217 respectively. So, hitting wise, he's made more contact. He's had a bunch of doubles this year. I think he used to lead the league in doubles a couple of games ago, 37 doubles. His slug is decent, over 500, over 508. So, Pete's a guy that, some people want him to stay. Other people don't want him to go. Want him to go. But the fact of the matter is Pete's going to be 31 years old. He's going to be 31 next year. And I saw the guy this year getting tired. I saw a guy this year where his age might be a factor and might be a factor more and more in each of the seasons he gets older and older. Now, if he got tired at age 30 and he, you saw it on the field down the stretch, you need Pete Alonso. And if he's not going to be there because, one reason or another, I'm just seeing a different Pete as the season goes on. That's just my opinion. Now, if he wants a contract close to $100 million, I'm not willing to do that. I'm really not. If you want to go on a 1 year basis with Pete, 1 year at a time, I consider maybe doing that. But if he's looking for that long-term contract and this year, that's what you hear. Yes, you hear from certain outlets. I wouldn't bring him back. I don't want to invest in this guy long term. How much have we won with Pete? How much have we won with Nimmo? How much have we won with McNeil? Not too much. And, I don't know the dynamic in the clubhouse. I don't know the reasons why, hey, it's not working. But I do know that Pete has been a key cog. And Pete, even like, defensive plays, like, could you hit the pitcher running to first base? One of the most simplest plays in baseball. Hit the pitcher running to first base. Has had trouble with that. Again, it's got to be a special circumstance for me to say yes to Pete Alonso. Otherwise, I'm moving on. I want this team to get younger. Ryan Clifford, hey, let's give this guy an opportunity before we get to the trade deadline. Another team asks for him, and then we end up trading a Ryan Clifford away. I want to get younger. I want to get faster, and I want to turn the page. Again, that's my mentality. So, Pete Alonso, for me, it's a no. We got Lindor next. All right, folks. We got Francisco Lindor. All right, so Francisco Lindor was next. Lost connection to the screen. But okay, so Francisco Lindor is next. I'm just going to ask, would you keep Francisco Lindor on the team if you had a choice? And I'm going to say this. I already would cut bait with Nimmo. I would already cut bait with Pete Alonso. Francisco Lindor, honestly, my opinion, a lot of things I didn't like. Again, I don't like him fraternizing with the other team when we're fighting for a playoff stretch run. When we're fighting for a win, all I see is him talking to other players, laughing, fooling around, joking around in the clubhouse, joking around. When you pan into the dugout when we're on a 6-7 game losing streak, is that captain material? No. Okay, so that's not captain material. But if you look at the output right now, the output has been pretty consistent over the last couple years. This year, has he been less consistent than last year? Yes. But here's the thing. He's had a major injury in the middle of this season. Major injury. I believe he broke his toe. So for 2 months, he's playing with a broken toe. That affects a lot of things. That affects your mechanics. That affects your confidence. That affects your defensive capabilities. That causes you to, adjust in other ways. So your mechanics are way off. It took him 2 months. 2 months he slumped. August started to hit a little better, but his defensive capabilities, you could see this year, he doesn't look right. So number one, I would keep Lindor, obviously, in my opinion, but you got to fix him. You got to get this guy 100% right. The only thing I am a little concerned with is last year he had that back injury. This year he had a couple injuries that they don't seem like they're long-term injuries, but what's the deal with the back? What's the deal with that? If there's something about that I'm not aware of, that he has, some type of chronic condition, which I've never heard of, so I don't want to speculate on that, but that's just an example. If he had something like that, then I would move away. If it's just these injuries that he's having that could be healed, all right, yeah, get him right, get him focused, and definitely bring him back. And then also, too, the guy, we need a leader. We need a leader on this team. And my hope to have Lindor as the leader, to me, he's proven he can't be the leader. All right, so let's continue this. Okay, so all right, so just to kind of wrap up, again, would you bring him back? Would you not? Starling Marte, I'm a no. Cedric Mullins, I'm a no. Brandon Nimmo, I'm a no. Jose Siri, yes, because I think the guy is a defensive stud, and if I can pay him $2 million to be my fifth outfield solution or fifth outfielder, I consider it. Juan Soto, I'm a yes. Acuna, yes, as a fifth infielder. Would I trade him in the right package? Yes. Pete Alonso, would I bring him back? I'm like 90% no on that. Brett Beatty, bring him back. Yes. Francisco Lindor, bring him back. Yes. Ronnie Mauricio, bring him back. Yes. But would I trade him in the right package? Yes. Jeff McNeil, I'm a no on. And Mark Vientos, especially since Pete Alonso is out, he could be my first baseman and my DH. And when this guy's hot, this guy's bat is dynamic. Okay, so Francisco Alvarez, Hayden Singer, and Luis Torrens. Luis Torrens as a backup catcher, I don't even think we got to talk. I think, the funny thing is Luis Torrens, I think unanimously, if you've been watching the Mets games, most Mets fans would say there's no doubt you bring Luis Torrens back. Hayden Singer, really haven't seen enough of him. But the big guy here is Francisco Alvarez. Now, Francisco Alvarez is a guy who's literally been very inconsistent in his career. Very inconsistent. But he's also been very injury prone. Very injury prone. Had the hand injury, the hamate bone injury in the beginning of this year. Coming back from that, he struggled mightily. Was sent down to the minor leagues, and he eventually mashed. He did great in the minor leagues, came back up in August, and then continued to mash. Well, unfortunately, he got hurt again, tore a ligament in his hand, then broke a pinky, and now he's trying to help the Mets play down the stretch. So here's my thing on Alvarez. Get this man right. He is your future. Catching is very important. That's the position that you're set on. You have your catcher, Alvarez. The guy showed you how dynamic he could be offensively in August. That was the Alvarez that I remember, seeing in minor leagues. That was the Alvarez that I wanted, and we finally saw him in August, and he got hurt. So you got to get him right. I don't like that he's playing right now. If he was a free agent, if he was older, I'd say, okay, that's fine. But he's a 23-year-old kid who's got 4 years left before he becomes a free agent. I don't understand, potentially hurting him for any of our future. But, okay, the Mets are doing what they're doing. They like to play injured players. All right, that's on them. But Francisco Alvarez, I'm definitely bringing him back. He's definitely going to be here for the future, but I want to get him right. I definitely want to get him right. Now, let's go to some of these pitching options. Okay. And again, for whoever stepped in, would you bring them back for next year? Yes or no, regardless of contract situations. Now, Sean Manaea, let's go to the one of the guys who frustrates me the most. This guy frustrates me the most. We gave him a 3-year, $75 million contract. This is the first year of his contract. He's 33 years old. Next year, he will be 34. And would you bring him back? I think unanimously, everybody would say no, they're not going to bring him back based on not only has his performance been bad, his attitude's been bad. The guy's had no answer. His demeanor has been bad. Everything's been bad about Sean Manaea, everything. And it's not like he's had any stretches where you saw the old Sean Manaea, really. Although couple of games you saw the first couple innings he did decent, but I'm looking at each game. So I haven't seen any individual games where he was solid to good, and last year he was good to great. So this year he hasn't even been solid. He's a guy I would not bring back, but unfortunately David Stearns, one of his big moves was signing Sean Manaea till he's 33, 34, 35 years old. And again, I was leery about that because you're giving a 33-year-old who just became a sidearmer and who only had one successful stretch in his career. And now his last year in 2024, the last 3 months is when he really elevated his performance. The New York Mets believed that, they discovered something special through the pitching lab and that, now he's going to be like a Chris Sale type of player. Very silly and foolish. Sean Manaea's numbers this year are pathetic. He's 1-3. 5.76 ERA, and he's pitching worse and worse, gives you no confidence. And again, he should have been holding Kodai Senga's bags when Kodai Senga went down to the minor league. He should have been down there with him. So Manaea is a huge no. Not even going to talk about the next guy, Frankie Montas, huge no right there. And again, look at that. Those are the two big pitching acquisitions from David Stearns, and they're not even like something you would really consider or something I would consider. David Peterson is I think he's got 1 year left after this year before he becomes a free agent. But this year overall, he's 9-5, 3.77 ERA. He's pitched 162 innings, folks. His max innings that he threw before this year was 121. So he is so far over that. So we are stretching him. And you've seen in his last couple starts, he's struggled. He really has. He's really struggled in his last couple starts. But he's a guy, like I said, that we've really stretched and we've asked him to do much more than I would have ever expected. But if he's a guy I want, he's a guy I still want as part of my rotation. I just want to utilize him correctly. I want to utilize everybody correctly. And that's part of the problem. You got everybody playing the wrong position. You got everybody mismanaged, everybody being utilized incorrectly. We're relying on 3 rookies. Holmes is another problem. Holmes is a guy who's a converted reliever. Holmes is a guy who only threw a max of 67 innings. I think that was his highest total 1 year. And now Holmes's innings are, let me get you the exact number, but Holmes right now is being asked to pitch so much more. He's at right now 151 innings pitched. 151. So he's more than double what he did as a reliever. More than double. We're about double. And the season's not over. So again, you're asking him to stretch his arm well more than he's ever pitched in his entire career. So do you expect that he's going to fail? Is it a surprise that Holmes has struggled to pitch more than 5 innings? And now that Holmes is struggling down the stretch? No, because Peterson, they are in uncharted territory. So again, I mean, this is really all these daggers into David Stearns' plan. His pitching plan was doomed to fail from the beginning. I wonder, like, when I did the Frankie Montas video, the video in December when we signed him, I hated that signing. I hated that signing back then. But I know there was a contingent of people, and it's fine. You have confidence in the pitching lab. You had confidence that maybe he could, turn him around like Severino and Manaea the year before. But, it wasn't just, his stuff. It was like the mentality that Montas had. And, we saw him in New York. You saw how bad he did when he was with the Yankees. You saw the injury-prone nature. So that's why, it was just so predictable what happened this year. And that's why it's infuriating and frustrating that, hey, this was predictable. This was completely predictable. So, that was a huge mistake, So Clay Holmes, a guy that I would have for next year, I would bring him back. I would just utilize him correctly. You utilize David Peterson correctly. You utilize Clay Holmes correctly. And I thought, and I'm pretty sure most of us thought this, that Clay Holmes would be converted at one point to a reliever. The guy's thrown more than double his career innings. I'm pretty sure 90% of us thought maybe early August we'd put him to the pen, or we would have maybe acquired another starter at the deadline, or brought up Nolan McLean into maybe late July. I mean, the whole planning for this New York Mets season, or how it's turned out, has been really disastrous. The timing on every move, disastrous. Yeah, explosive. I saw Christian Scott returning next year. He's supposed to return next year, but I could definitely see that situation evolving into, oh, he's going to be here in late April. And then, late April comes. All right, we'll see him in June. All right, we'll see him before the All-Star break. All right, we'll see him by the trade deadline. So, I hope the best. I wish the best for Christian Scott. I love to have Christian Scott, Nolan McLean. I love to have Brandon Sproat. I love to have Jonah Tong. I love to have all of our top, a lot of homegrown guys. I'd love to have them in the rotation, but here's the deal. You can't rely on all those guys right now. You really can't. We're not the Miami Marlins. We're not. You need to have legit talent in that starting rotation. Now, it looks like Nolan McLean is going to be the goods. He's got the stuff. Not only does he have the stuff, not only does he have the talent, he's got the mentality. He's got the mentality of, a seasoned vet. The mental aspect of the game, again, I'm never going to underappreciate that. Never. Again, Greg Maddux, he said working on the mental part of the game over 60% of the time, because baseball is mental. If you're mentally stronger than the other team, you're going to be in a much better position. And we see right now we are in a bad position, losing 7 games in a row, losing a bunch of games in the last 3 months. Our team right now is in a mentally weak position. That's why you look to leaders in times like this. And again, we are a lack of leaders. Carlos Mendoza, not a leader. Francisco Lindor, not a leader. Juan Soto, not a leader. And I heard today, a couple people, great comments. I'm going to say great comments. I respect everybody's comment, but, everybody was saying, or not everybody, multiple people I heard said this comment, that why would you sign Juan Soto to an $800 million contract when he's not a leader, or that, he's not a leader this year? Well, here's the deal. This year, has Juan Soto been a big leader? Has he been that big leader in the clubhouse? Doesn't look like it. But Juan Soto's flaws, like lack of leadership, not the greatest defender, not the fastest guy, we knew all these flaws before we gave him the $800 million. We weren't saying, hey, here's $800 million, go lead the clubhouse. No, we already knew the guy wasn't a leader. We already knew that. I mean, that's why like Lindor was kind of looked as the leader. But then, I look, is there a division? Is there a division between Lindor? Is there a division between Soto? Both of the highest paid guys. And, I don't know behind the scenes stuff, but I know what I read. And Juan Soto, it was asked of him, like, hey, what do you think about Lindor being the leader? And he literally said that Lindor, the leader, he says that Starling Marte is more of a leader on this team. Now, that may be the case, but it's just kind of funny that he had an opportunity to back Francisco Lindor as the leader, and he said, no, you got Starling Marte here, who is more of a leader. So that is kind of a fraction right there. To me, like, I don't think that was support at all. I thought almost that was more of a swipe. So you're going to have to fix that chemistry issue. I'm not saying, I know if there's any lack of chemistry between the two, but that comment doesn't really show me that, he's behind Lindor as a leader. Giovanni, what's up? You know what? This is something that you never know what's going to happen in the future. You're right. I think Soto is going to become the leader in the future. Here's the deal. And I don't look at him like this. Juan Soto's 26 years old. He's 26 years old. So, I mean, could he become a future leader, 28, 29, 30? There's plenty of time for that. The guy, and I always look at him like he's been around forever, but he's 26 years old. But right now, is he a leader? No. Could he be a leader in the future? We don't know, but it's possible. What's up, Tim? Zig, you're right. I don't think Lindor and Soto get along. Without knowing the inner dynamics, we can't really dispute that because we know what we see on the field, and on the field play is horrific. So I would support that speculation. I just can't confirm it. Explosive. Something is off. Maybe the players have issues with Soto being a loner. Something really was off. Really. And I never said this in any videos. And I never really, had a video topic of this. But in the first couple weeks, right, the Mets were winning, right? They were winning. Alonso was doing phenomenal. The pitching staff was lights out, and Soto wasn't doing great. But not only was he not doing great, he just looked like he was dragging himself on the field. Like he wasn't doing the Soto shuffle, wasn't smiling. I remember one game he had a hood on. He was just looking down the whole time. He just didn't look like a guy who was happy to be there, right? So if there's some dynamics, like that, I wouldn't be surprised. And if you're another player and you see a guy get a record contract, would I be surprised if people are jealous? If I be surprised if people are saying he doesn't deserve that? No, I mean, that's kind of human nature. It's human nature to be a bit jealous of a guy who just got $800 million. I mean, we're all supposed to be in for one goal, one purpose. But again, at the end of the day, they're human beings. So if you got multiple big superstars making a tremendous amount of money, then I think back to what worked in the past. And I remember that's why a guy like Joe Torre, and I hate to go back 3 decades, that's why he was so good at managing these big personalities. And he was so good at managing these guys. At the time, they were making top dollar, but he got them all to buy in. Derek Jeter, I'm not a Mets fan, but I respect Derek Jeter because he wasn't laughing with the other opponents when we're in the midst of a losing streak. Derek Jeter would, his only thing that he wanted to do was win. So when I compare a Lindor attitude and approach to a Francisco Lindor to a Derek Jeter, it's night and day. And again, you need better leadership. You need guys to even steer these superstar players. Need to bring everybody together, and that's where Carlos Mendoza. Last year I was a little suspect. Is he that type of personality? Does he have a strong personality, a dynamic personality? He seems like a nice guy. Again, I call him like a Mr. Rogers type of guy, but I don't think he has that type of credibility and that type of pull to bring everybody together. I just don't. I mean, last year when we wanted to hire a guy who was more or less a rookie, I'm like, I would go with a guy more like Carlos Beltran than a guy like Mendoza. If I'm going to hire a guy with no experience and I'm going to hire a guy to bring superstars together, and we already knew the Mets had a high payroll team, I'd rather go with a guy like Carlos Beltran. So that was my opinion last year. Did Soto family even use the suite this year? That's a good question. I mean, yeah, I remember that was a huge part of the deal, giving his family. And the Mets did a lot for his mom. That they did a lot. I forgot the crazy things, but yeah, they went above and beyond to give him every single thing that he wanted. I mean, regardless, I doubt that he used the suite every game. Probably used it some games, but the idea is the respect factor is who's going to do the most, who's going to do the most to woo him. And the New York Mets bent over backwards, jumped over barrels, ran through a wall to say, I will do whatever it takes. So again, is that something that the players see as well? Like you guys, moved heaven and earth for Juan Soto, who had no impact on the 2024 Mets, and now you bring him here, you give him everything he wants. And, you did ridiculous things like giving the suite out, the stuff that I read. I forgot exactly what it was, but the stuff that he did for his mom was also stuff that I never heard you do for any other players. But again, it's stuff that other players I could see getting jealous of. Yeah, Ray, this is the thing that gets me. All Mendy says is we got to get better. We got the talent. We got to win. We're going to do it. I mean, he's been saying that for 2 straight months. And, what could the guy do? The guy's got no answers. The guy has no answers. And that's where I'm very disappointed. Again, I want to hear, all right, you failed. What are you doing differently now and in the future so that you don't continue to fail? And again, repeating the same lines over and over doesn't inspire confidence. And you look at his demeanor, right? His demeanor in the post game, and it's the demeanor of a dead man walking. Unfortunately, it's a man who probably fears getting fired, who knows that he's done a terrible job, and I don't see the confidence. I don't see a man there that I would follow into battle. A guy like, Joe Torre, I hate to go back years and years ago, but, won a bunch of World Series. Even Bruce Bochy won 4 World Series. Joe Torre, a bunch of World Series. All these guys who win a bunch of World Series, they got these, same face every single time, whether they win, lose. And if they don't want to tell you something, they won't tell you something. They're not just going to repeat the same thing over and over. I'd rather him say, we're working every single damn day to correct what we're not doing right. I want to see passion. I want to see fire. I want to see fight. I want to get inspired. Is Mendy a guy who can inspire players to get better, run through a wall, fight down the stretch? No. And then again, like I've said this, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, I believe those guys have more pull than Carlos Mendoza. So, you got a lot of issues with the New York Mets, unfortunately. All right. So I think I did everybody. Would I bring him back next year? Would I not? Just real quick, I'm just gonna go to the bullpen real quick. Brazabont, would I bring him back next year? No. Diaz, obviously, yes. Reed Garrett, no. Helsley, hell no. Just making sure I got everybody. Brooks Raley, no. Tyler Rogers, no. Ryan Stanek, no. And Gregory Soto, no. That's just me. So I'm literally not bringing anybody back except for Diaz. Zig, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Please tell me what the offseason plan is. All right, so I'm gonna go through it real quick. I'm not gonna really go through players yet because I didn't really assess the free agent market, the trade market. Obviously, things could change between now and then too. But I'm gonna tell you the plan. Um, and if you missed it earlier, Mendoza, I'm not bringing back. So I need a new manager. I need a new staff. Antoine Richardson, I like him. He could stay. Pitching coach. I want a clean house. I really want a clean house in that dugout. So I want a new manager. David Stearns, I'm still keeping him, but I want to hire a general manager. I want to take those duties off of his plate and have him focus just more on baseball operations. So hire a general manager, hire a new manager. And then as far as the team, which is very, very important, after you already assembled your leaders, so you have your leaders in place, at least at the manager level, you got to attack what is your biggest problem this year. What's your biggest problem? So you attack the starting rotation. That's your thing. You got to replace and shore up, injured, bad performing starters. Sean Manaea, that's an albatross. You have 2 years left of this guy, right? And I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn that we have 2 years and $50 million left. I'm not going to let this guy who literally shows you that he could care less. And that's what I think. Like, this guy's got $25 million he's making a year. He sets a bad example. He's a bad performing starter. So whatever you got to do, whether you got to cut the guy, whatever you got to do, try to trade the guy, you probably get nothing back, but he's not going to be in my starting rotation. He's not going to be hurting me. Kodai Senga, you got to see if you can get this guy right. He's lost a couple miles per hour on his fastball. Some of his whip statistics and some of his statistics on Baseball Savant look terrible compared to last year. So you got to fix Kodai Senga. That's number one. You fix Kodai Senga. You saw how good Kodai Senga was in the beginning of this year. I think he's dealing with a couple injuries that he's not really saying. So Kodai Senga is experienced. You need that veteran. Then you have Nolan McLean. You have, you got to figure out Sprout, Tong. What do you got there? But then you also got to make another move. You got to get another veteran. You got to get another guy who has a top of the rotation ability. You got to get another guy. You can't rely on getting pet projects. I don't want to ever have a Frankie Montes back here. I don't want another one of those guys you rely on. So you need to either through trade or, the free agency. That's going to be a little tougher. But this is where this guy gets paid. You need to shore up that rotation. That's number one. Through trades, you get another veteran or free agency. But I think that's going to be a little tough. But again, you do it through trades. We need to get reliable talent. Then number two, what's the next thing that the Mets really need? You bolster the bullpen. You need to bolster the bullpen. AJ Minter got hurt last year. That was a good addition up until he got hurt. You need to surround, let's assume Edwin Diaz comes back. You need to surround Edwin Diaz with reliable arms. Now, a guy like Jonah Tong or Brandon Sproat, if they're not, I think they're probably going to be starters, but, you have a bunch of arms in your minor leagues. If you have any of those guys, if you foresee them as being bullpen ready, which that might be hard to do, then you got to add a couple arms. You add them over the free agency or you add them through trades. Mets got to get ultra creative. And again, I don't care who they trade. They got to break things up. So again, pitching rotation, number one. And I don't have the players. I didn't look at the free agent list. I didn't look at, the trade market yet. And again, it could change. So you got to do the rotation, the bullpen. Then I think you got to work on the defense. The defense has been horrendous. You got to upgrade, make sure you got a great defense out in left field. I'm not coming back with Nimmo. So you got to have a solid defender in left, a solid defender in center. I don't know if they got Carson Benj, if they foresee him as coming up next year, but you need to work on your defense, outfield defense, and then you shore up your defense in the infield. Are you going to put is are you going to put Beatty at third? If you put Beatty at third, are you going to acquire a second baseman? But again, it's pitching rotation, it's the bullpen, it's the defense, and that's about it. And without like talking about players, that's where I would go. I'm just taking a look at the New York Mets payroll situation for 2026. All right, so the Mets payroll for 2026 is so I'm looking at fan graphs. Like every single if I look at Baseball Reference, if I look at other sites, the payroll situation is always different. I mean, the payroll I'm not that great with, but Juan Soto, according to Fangraphs, he's going to be making 62 million in 2026. Lindor is making 34. That right there is 95 million. And then Manaya and Nimmo, 45 million. 140. And then you got Edwin Diaz. He comes back. He's making 19. And then Kodai Senga, he's coming back at 14. It's 173. Clay Holmes, luckily we got him for another year. He's coming back at 13 million. That's 186. Jeff McNeil, the squirrel, next year is making close to 16 million. Wow. That's 202. AJ Minter, he's got a player option. I mean, I got to assume he's going to exercise that player option. That's $11 million. He hasn't pitched this year. So I'll add him in. I'm not adding everybody. I'm not adding Alonso. Oh, I got to add another guy in. Frankie Montas, he's got a player option for 17 million. Obviously, he's definitely going to opt in. Dumbest. So that's 230. And you have Marte, he's a free agent. Jesse Winker, a free agent. Ryan Stanek, a free agent. Griffin Canning, a free agent. And then you have club options on Brooks Raley, Drew Smith. I already said I wouldn't bring those guys back, so I'm not going to count them. Cedric Mullins, also free agent. Ryan Helsley, free agent. Gregory Soto, free agent. Tyler Rogers, free agent. And then, okay, so that right there, without getting to the arbitrational eligible players, without bringing back Pete Alonso, that's $230 million. That's $230 million. So if you wanted to bring back a Pete Alonso is going to be looking for $30 million. That brings your contracts up to $260 million. Then you got to pay David Peterson. You got to pay Tyrone Taylor. You got to pay Torrens. You got to pay Madrigal. Jose Siri, if you decide. Okay, Jose Siri is going to be on the team. Tyler McGill. Right, so let's estimate that. Probably 25 mil. Throw that number out there. And then you got other guys on arbitrational. They're arbitrationally one eligible, so they're not going to be making as much. You got guys like Kranick, Reed Garrett, Francisco Alvarez, Mark Vientos, Brazabon, Brett Beatty, and Nolan McLean. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So I mean, I think my answer to my question is obvious. With Pete Alonso and re-signing most of your guys who are arbitrational eligible, and then Montas. Yeah, I mean, this is how you got a lot of dead weight. Montas is going to opt in. You got AJ Minter going to opt in. You're going to be about $300 million if you re-sign Pete for $30 million. And that's not adding any pitchers. That's not adding any extra talent. I mean, that's not making trades either. So you have $300 million without any ads. Now, if you decide not to sign Pete, you're anywhere between 260 and 270. 260 and 270. So I think, based on the Mets situation, and you're coming off a disastrous year, it's really hard to fathom that the Mets would sign Pete Alonso. It's, because that puts you at $300 million, right at the third luxury tax level, and you're going to be bringing back the same team, and adding everyone else is going to tax you double. So David Stearns really put us in a pretty big bind. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best at this. I just kind of went on how much they're making every next year, and I added it up. I could have added stuff up wrong, but to me, I'm getting around 300 mil. If all the guys opt in that have player options, and the guys that have player options, Frankie Montas, gonna opt in. AJ Minter, I assume he hasn't pitched much. He's coming off an injury, making $11 million. He's gonna opt in. So that's almost $30 million of guys who are, were injured. They're gonna opt in. Then you got a lot of dead weight. You got Sean Manaea making $25 million. And then you got the mega contracts up top, Lindor, Soto, Nimmo, financially, next year is going to be very tough. It's going to be a very tough year. And that's why I think the Mets right now, their long-term vision, they brought the kids up late. And I probably wanted to see, all right, who's going to be a solution for next year? Noah McLean. Okay, looks like he's going to be a solution for next year. But as of right now, you got Brandon Sproat and Jonah Tong, who are still question marks. I mean, if Diaz, if he decides to opt out, that saves you almost 19 million, but that also creates a huge hole, a huge hole. So again, I mean, you have Kodai Senga on the books for 2026 and 2027. And possibly, if he does produce in those 2 years, you have a club option, very reasonable club option for 2028 at 15 mil. So potentially, Kodai Senga, you got to get him right. That's the bottom line, because he potentially could be here for another 3 years. You got to fix him. You definitely got to fix him. And, you know, Clay Holmes has an option too for next year. But here's the deal: like, Clay Holmes has a player option at 12 million. I would think Clay Holmes is going to opt out. I mean, I would think Clay Holmes is going to opt out. The guy's got 150 innings pitched and has really shown that he's worth more than 12 million. Really has shown that he's worth more than 12 million. I know, I guess you got to see how the market works, but I think 12 million for a guy like Clay Holmes is very reasonable. Yeah, Zig Senga absolutely was pitching terrible his last 8 or 9 starts, but he did do well in the beginning, and you do unfortunately have him on your team for the next 2 years guaranteed. So you got to see if you can get some semblance of, you know, his ceiling, and, you know, some of his pitchers have shown a decline. His fastball, he lost 2 miles per hour on the fastball. Is it because he's dealing with something? Is he hurt? You know, players right now are swinging less. They're striking out less on Kodai Senga's, you know, secondary pitches. I know he's still got the nasty forkball, but if you don't have that electric fastball, it plays a little different. As nasty as that forkball is, you know, if the fastball is not as electric, the forkball is going to look a little more easier to hit if you're expecting that. But you know what, everyone, I just want to say thank you for staying in the chat room. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna get going right now. 2:30 in the morning. I think we had enough Mets therapy. But again, thank you, everyone. Continue to like. I gotta kind of fix this video. If everyone was here in the beginning, I think the first 6 or 7 minutes. I apologize. It looked like my browser was blocking the microphone. So. Oh, well, not a big tech guy. What am I going to say? But thank you, everyone, for, you know, hanging out. I appreciate it. Have a great night. Get some sleep. And again, we're not out of it right now. We're not out of it. And, you know, let's see what happens. You got to take the next 2. Let's see if we can take the next 2 from Texas. And then we'll move on from there. A day at a time. Let's listen to Mendoza a day at a time. We got the talent. We got the experience. We got the guys. Blah, 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 blah. All right, everyone, have a great night. Like I always used to say 2 years ago, can't get any worse, but it probably will. All right. Have a great night.